Greg Ball, 8 years in New York State Legislature. Started in '06 as an assemblyman, 4 years there. In 2011, 4 years in the state Senate. The last time you and I spoke, and this is all my perspective, was at Vets Thanksgiving event. At the time, you said to me that Albany politics is dirty and particularly difficult if you are a conservative Republican. And to me, you seemed very calm, almost Zen-like in how relaxed you were. How has your perspective changed? Because it seemed to me like a very different Greg Ball than the guy who was a real firebrand and started up back in '05 to challenge a long-term incumbent in the state assembly.
The way I got into the business was to shake up the establishment and to run a primary campaign against an incumbent whose family from this area had the seat for over 70 years. Right. And people said there's no way you're ever going to be able to do that. I think Wills had the seat at that time for 12 years. His grandfather had been majority, both I think had served as majority leader when Republicans had control over the assembly, if it tells you. And I remember at parades my campaign workers actually getting threatened and told that they'd never be able to have a job, they wouldn't be able to raise families around here for supporting me. And we won that race with something like 73% of the vote. And I showed up to the legislature and I, intent on making friends, stood up and in my first speech called everybody dysfunctional.
This is the most dysfunctional legislature in the United States of America. I may make no. Mr. Speaker, will you please take control?
How do you vote?
It may not make me many friends, but that's the truth. That's how the public feels. And they feel that way for a reason. I may be one voice today, but if you continue to violate the public trust, and you continue to violate and stand up against a governor who has a mandate from the people to reform this chamber and this state, my voice will be heard because I know that 18 million stand with me. Thank you, and God bless.
And it's not a good way to make friends. And I think how you transition from being in the minority in the assembly, but following through with what you said I was going to do. I said I was going to shake things up. And people wanted me to do that. And had I not done that, I wouldn't have been true to my constituents. But I created a lot of enemies. And then when I transitioned onto the Senate side, I did it not by having the support of my own party. Even as an incumbent assemblyman, never had the support of my own party. So I had to both run primaries and do general elections, 7 elections in 8 years. And when I got into the Senate, I got there by taking on the Senate campaign committee that I now co-chair, which is kind of funny. And taking on, of course, the Democratic establishment, but the Republican establishment. When I went to the Senate, my complete focus was legislative, constituent work, and doing the best job I possibly could. I wanted to prove that sure, I was a brash assemblyman, but that I actually could be effective on the ground in the legislative process. And I believe that my record stands for itself on that front. But the transition, just because I transitioned mentally doesn't mean that all those enemies transitioned. They certainly didn't. And so it was very difficult. And I think as a conservative in New York State, I know, you have a huge target on your back. There are things that they allow Democrats and liberals to get away with, that they never ask any questions whatsoever. And they just let that pass by. But if you're an outspoken conservative in a truly liberal state, where the establishment is left to left, and if you pose a real threat, they will come after you, and they're very aggressive, whether it be the Albany Press or New York City or beyond.
You say when you made that transition, is that the time that you moved from the Assembly to the Senate?
Yeah.
Because I could see that. I could see that in your whole public approach.
Right.
You took on much more of a statesman type of position.
When I ran that race for Senate, that was such a nasty race. I mean, they didn't come after me on issues, you know, and I will hit. I can give a punch, and I believe I've proven I can take punches and knives and, you know, bombs and all sorts of stuff sent in my direction as well. But I try to hit opponents on the issues, and I hit them very aggressively on the issues. But when they came after me, it's always personal. And that race in particular, you know, for me and my family, was just a disgusting race. And you know, there was a point I said, guys, I'm not a quitter, so I'm going to commit to winning this race. I'm going to win it, and then I'm going to resign. I won it, and then when I got into conference, I was really impressed with the Senate Republican Conference and their members. They're just professional, hardworking members, and I like working with them. And I asked for the chairmanship of Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security and Military Naval Affairs, and I got that. And I just set to work to try to make a difference, the set aside for service-disabled vets, and finally got that done, and hundreds of other either pieces of legislation or projects. Veteran Cemetery Project, which was a personal, you know, pet project of mine that we finally got done. There's a ton of good work that we did, and for instance, Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, we didn't. I'm not a politician who just shows up and, hey, I'm here, and then leaves. I mean, my office put that together to feed 800 veterans and cook like 110 turkeys with volunteers from all over the community, and that's the kind of stuff that keeps you going.
Greg, thank you very much. Let's put politics aside now. We'll finish off this segment. When we come back, we will talk more about his legislation and the types of bills that he's passed and what he's accomplished in his 8 years in the state legislature, what he's most proud of. When we come back to Greg Ball's exit interview right here on HVNN.com.